Storm. It's still going to have some showers and storms possible in Florida after the worst part of the storm moves into Georgia. But again, Georgia, it looks like the worst of it will start to move in as we get into the afternoon. They'll be dealing with it then. And then as we get into the evening, it looks as though it'll start to make its way towards South Carolina.
LNL meteorologist Sandra Brogan. Sandra, thank you. We'll keep in touch with you throughout the morning and potentially into the afternoon as well. Yes. Thank you for stopping by. So Idalia has already been bringing damaging winds and rain to the Appalachia Bay region. When the storm settles, it could be a major blow for states as it is still reeling in certain areas from Hurricane Ian just last year. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has issued an emergency declaration for 49 of the state's 67 counties, and 5,500 National Guard troops have been deployed, ready to help.
As soon as it's safe to do so, when the winds die down to a sufficient level, search and rescue efforts will begin. We have 8 urban search and rescue teams staged, ready to go, 33 ambulance strike teams, 5,500 National Guardsmen. We also have the Coast Guard on standby should that be necessary.
As you heard Sandra mention, Florida isn't the only state that will feel Idalia's wrath. Damaging winds and heavy rains will likely move into Georgia and the Carolinas late Wednesday into Thursday. Let's go ahead and go back to Tallahassee, Florida, right in the middle of this storm. WCTV with their coverage.
This is that center of circulation. This right here is the worst part. Heavy, heavy downpours, lots of lightning in this little area right there, now entering southern portions of Madison County, about to get to that I-10 corridor. I think Jacob, Lenitra, you guys just gave a report about I-10 closures westbound in Jefferson County. It's about to get a whole lot worse right now in Madison County. This is the worst of the storm right here in terms of wind and heavy downpour, so we'll have to see what comes out of that. But I'll tell you what, we were talking a whole lot about storm surge. We've still got some ongoing right now. Not only do we have the winds going onshore still in portions of Steinhatchee down through the rest of Taylor County, still down to Dixie County as well, but on the flip side of things, where the winds are coming out of the other direction, this is where you're probably seeing water getting sucked out of the bay right now, because the wind is flowing from inland down into the bay, and we've seen this happen sometimes where the water starts to recede. It just depends which side of it you're on. This side you're good to go, this side, as we've unfortunately seen, not at all. Here's a zoomed in view of that core right now. I've kind of given you this red little circle so you can tell where the most dangerous part of this storm is right now. Coastal areas starting to improve right now. The worst of it is now exiting out of Perry. Madison, if you are in Madison right now, this is your time to make sure that you are inside, lowest level of your home, away from windows. You've got some real gusty winds on the way to you right now. We've also got a tornado watch that's going to be in effect until 3 p.m. and the reason why is because we've got these feeder bands coming in on the southeastern side of Idalia. These have a history of producing some tornadic thunderstorms. What I mean by that, you're going to start to see some of those spin-ups. We've seen a couple tornado warnings. I'm keeping a very close eye on this. So is Rob. If one of those tornado warnings do happen to pop up in our area, then we're going to immediately come on and get you the latest information on that. Here's a new little graphic I want to show you. This is wind velocities. This shows us which direction the winds are moving, either away or towards the radar. Now, we know these winds like to spin counterclockwise. Now, see this little dark area right here? That's indicating very, very strong winds, the strongest winds out of anything else on this map. You can see some very strong winds right now pushing now offshore out of Wakulla County, probably adding into that storm surge. But this right here is the most concerning, and this is heading right towards Madison right now. So once again, if you're in Madison, now's your time to get inside. This is fair warning. You've got some very, very dangerous conditions on the way. That's just to the south of I-10 right now, about to pass over. We've got the storm surge map here. We've pretty much already seen the effects of it, right? The worst of it is where it was anticipated along that Taylor County coastline down through Dixie County as well. Some of the water actually getting sucked out of the bay on this side just because of how the winds are positioned. And yes, we've seen that happen before. Speaking of winds, Here's where we're at right now across the area. Wind speeds in Tallahassee are at 29 miles per hour. These are sustained winds, not just wind gusts. 25 in Moultrie right now, 51 in Perry. We're not getting the reading in Live Oak, and we don't have one in Madison, but I tell you, it's going to be very, very high right there. 20 in Valdosta right now, 22 in Bainbridge. I see 15 in Apalachicola. Here's the current wind gusts. That's bad. Perry, 78 right now. Once again in Madison, it's either going to be that or probably higher when that really burst of wind starts to move on through, as we saw there on the wind velocity radar. 39 miles per hour there in Tallahassee, 37 in Quincy, 39 in Valdosta, 67 still down at Lafayette High. This thing is still churning across southeastern portions of the Big Bend, creating lots of damaging wind gusts out there. Let's see where the winds are moving off to next. Right now, the worst of it, definitely right here. Southeastern portions of the Big Bend where that high wind warning is out right now. It's going to continue to move towards the north and towards the east. Spots like Valdosta and some of our south central Georgia counties. I'm talking about Brooks County over through Clinch, Eccles, even Lanier. We're talking about over the next hour or two, even as we head towards 11, maybe 11:30. That's when the worst of it is on the way to you. Then it will continue to move off towards the northeast. Once that happens, we're going to start to notice these wind gusts finally start to die back down. By the time we get to this evening, everything is good to go out there. Still got your flood watch. Let's check in on some of that rainfall amounts right now. Yep, they're continuing to pile up. More and more spots now have a cumulative 2 to 3 inches. That's what you see in that blue there. Other spots a little bit more like in that purple. Now we're talking about 4, upwards of 5 inches of rainfall. Here comes your futurecast. I think this is reading it pretty well right now in terms of where the center of circulation is, as well as the rainfall bands. We're going to continue to see some heavy rain across the Big Bend, most likely until around lunchtime hour. Then you're going to notice things start to lighten up a little bit out there. It's still going to be windy. We're still going to be seeing rain in South Georgia, some heavy rain as well, until this thing starts to move out of places like Clinch County by the middle of this afternoon. And then remember, we've got some of these scattered showers and storms that are going to be arriving on the backside of Idalia as well. That's what we've got so far in the latest update. We're going to continue to track this. We're watching very closely, especially those in that direct path of that center of circulation with the strongest winds right now. And once again, this thing, it's going to move on out by the time we get to Wednesday. But the thing is, if you're going to be out there during these recovery efforts, keep in mind there's going to be some more. And some of these storms could definitely pack a punch. I mean, the Futurecast is picking up some pretty heavy downpours with some of these cells that want to form late tonight into early tomorrow morning. Here's one more current view of that radar loop. Yes, this is still a large, powerful, dangerous storm. There's that center of circulation now entering Madison County. Lots of lightning, lots of heavy downpours, damaging wind. It's now leaving Taylor County and Lafayette County, so you'll notice conditions there are going to improve. So if you're in Perry and you just saw the worst of it there, things are starting to improve. Things are definitely improving if you're down by the coast. Other than that, we've still got some moderate to heavy bands of rain and constant wind gusts of around 30 to 40 miles per hour across a lot of our area right now, including Tallahassee, up through Valdosta, down in Thomasville as well, and especially still down by the coast on southwestern reaches of the Big Bend. Spots like Wakulla County, down through Franklin County as well. The good news is in Franklin County, I think we're seeing the winds kind of move further enough away where they're not having too much of an effect. But we're still seeing some pretty damaging wind gusts right now in Wakulla County as well. That's pretty much all we got right now for this update. Rob's going to be back soon. We'll talk a little bit more about the details.
All right, Josh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And if a tornado warning comes up or something, just let us know, and we'll get right back to the weather team as we watch those very concerning bands enter our area like we thought they would.
Exactly. Those conditions are still, iffy out there, making their way through the area. We're going to go ahead and take a look at some information from Wakulla County.
Yeah, we're getting word that they have officially suspended all emergency services in Wakulla County, again, because of the high winds that are now out across our viewing area, but especially for those in the coast that now the storm's moving inland. So that's the reason why no emergency services are available. That's coming from Jeff Yarborough, who we spoke to a couple of hours ago, and he said that was certainly most likely the scenario that would happen, that it would not end up working out where they could still get to people if there was an emergency.
Right. And also along the coast in Wakulla County, we're starting to see some reverse storm surge already happening at the St. Mark's Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah, we have that camera. I don't know if it's possible to pull it up, but it shows kind of the opposite of what we saw in Steinhatchee, right? Instead of the water coming in, it's this, right? So it's kind of out to the bay, right?
Right,
so.
Yeah, the water being sucked back in.
All right, so we're going to continue to monitor our views here, and we're going to pivot now to Tallahassee Mayor John Daley. He's going to join us over the phone. In fact, he's going to join us over my phone. So I'm going to put him on speaker here. Little rudimentary, but it gets the job done. So.
Hello?
Mayor Daley, is this you? This is Jacob with WCTV. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jacob. How are you?
Good. We are beaming you right into our viewers' living room right now, if that's okay. We're taking you live. We just wanted a quick update on the situation as you see it from Tallahassee's perspective. Hopefully you've been okay overnight. And yeah, just give us a rundown right now on how things are looking in town.
Sure. I'm down at the Emergency Operations Center right now with our team. And first of all, let me say the men and women that work for the city of Tallahassee are absolutely fantastic in the county, and I appreciate all the hard work they're doing to keep us safe. Look, the storm's hitting us right now. We now know that this has the potential to be the worst hurricane to hit Tallahassee in the history of the city of Tallahassee and the Big Bend. So we have to take this seriously. Shelter in place. Do not go outside. High winds, a lot of rain. And then once the storm passes, we got to give everybody, the professionals, the opportunity to get out. Allow first responders to check on those in need, allow our utility crews and stormwater crews to get out and clear the streets and start putting the electricity back on. But yeah, we're feeling the effects right now.
Yeah, and Lenitra Bennett's with me as well, and so she might have a question for you too.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You mentioned the crew members, everyone is ready. What message would you like to give to the residents who, some people may be anxious to get out, but of course, we don't want them to do that, right?
Right. Now's the time to stay in place, shelter in place. Now, I know in Tallahassee, our major concern is when we lose power, how long is it going to take to restore the power? And I want you to know that we've prepared for this. We are actually tripling the size of our electric utility response. Not only do we have the great men and women of the City of Tallahassee Utility Department, but we have mutual aid agreements coming in as far away as Nebraska, Oklahoma, Ohio, Kentucky, Mississippi, Louisiana. Those assets are staged all over our community, and we have a couple of more private contractors coming in as well. As soon as it is safe and the wind speeds die down, they will be out repairing the infrastructure because, like I said earlier, this will be the largest hurricane, it looks like, to hit Tallahassee in the history of the city, and we will sustain damage to the infrastructure, but we're prepared. Stay inside, shelter in place.
Yeah, and I know Michael and Hermine taught valuable lessons for the entire community, right? And that those have been put into place for Idalia. And I know we've gone over some road closures earlier with our viewers in the community. Anything else that has caught your attention over the last couple hours that our viewers need to know, or any final message you have for our viewers?
Yeah, I mean, we're experiencing extreme heavy rain and high winds, and so, we're keeping an eye on the flash flooding situations in low-lying areas, and, of course, looking at the infrastructure and road closures and road blockages. Look, again, the best thing that the citizens can do right now, we've prepared for this, just stay home, shelter in place. If you're in a shelter, you're going to be taken great care of, and as the winds die down and we can assess the damage, we will immediately begin repairing Tallahassee.
All right, Mayor. Well, thanks so much for carving out a few minutes for us. I don't always cold call you and put you right on the air, but we do appreciate it this time around, and we'll stay in touch, of course.
Yeah, appreciate your coverage, and thanks for keeping citizens informed.
All right, take care, Mayor. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, that is Mayor John Daly keeping tabs from a Tallahassee perspective.
Right.
And he did say it could still end up being some of the worst tropical storms
Indeed.
that we've ever seen in the city of Tallahassee in terms of effects. And of course, once all the dust settles, we'll be able to compare Idalia to Michael to Hermine to even Kate back in the 80s. So
Right.
I think we had a shot from Madison County, if that's correct. So yeah, this is Boot Hill, one of the shots we normally take on a normal day at Madison County High School.
That weather stem camera there, just looking, gloomy, of course, but not too bad.
Yeah, there might be some ponding there on the field. It's hard to tell, but the sky's certainly ominous and gray, and I believe that's where we're concerned about what could come with Idalia in Madison County and farther inland.
Exactly. Things are still passing, so we still want everyone to be careful, and we'll go ahead and check in with Rob to see where things stand. We've already had that landfall about an hour ago, but we're still bracing for some effects. Rob, how are things right now?
Yeah, and that video, by the way, was probably looking like it was buffering a little bit. It was kind of behind and slower because the rain's coming down a whole lot more than it appeared to there. And maybe you could see it just in a couple spots if you got real close to the screen. It's serious rain in Madison County now. North of Perry is where that core is still lingering. And I think it's going to be Madison County up towards the state line into parts of Brooks and Lowndes that we're going to be watching at least whatever's left of this core that's still trying to hold together. That's where we're going to find the most significant rain and wind. That back edge is getting more and more pronounced and is trying to move a little bit more east as the storm itself moves to the north and east. And if we zoom in, you can see those darkest colors from around Perry up through Madison and maybe up towards Valdosta, so up into parts of South Georgia now. So that's where the area that is we're going to be most concerned with for the next 60 minutes or so as this center continues to make its way there. We go upstairs in the atmosphere onto the water vapor imagery. We're looking for these oranges to indicate some of that drier air maybe trying to get pulled into and help to weaken it even more. But I think here on the radar picture, you'll be able to point out and pick out where some of those most significant rains are. And you can see that they're now north of Perry, maybe just north of Perry, but certainly north of Perry, near Shady Grove, getting up to I-10 around Madison, maybe up to Cherry Lake, not quite into South Georgia yet, but awfully close. And where we've got some of these pockets where we're seeing these reds and purples, that's going to indicate some of that really heavy rain. And maybe that's just north of Dowling Park right now, lifting to the north and to the east. So some really significant rain in that area. And that's where we're seeing this little stripe, a little splotch here of that purple color that's indicating maybe 4 inches worth of rain accumulating, at least by radar's estimation, of just the past 12 hours. A lot of the area in the blue colors are probably going to be closer to 2 inches already from just the past 12 hours. And we've got a couple hours of rain still to go through. So lots of rain in this mix. Here are the current wind speeds that we see. And in Perry, those current winds from the north and west, 51 miles per hour. That's the sustained wind. That's like the 2 or 3 second average, not a 2 or 3 second burst. So that's the 1 minute average, not a 2 or 3 second burst. So 51 miles per hour sustained is serious wind. And we're going to see more of that try to work its way into parts of Madison County and maybe even into parts of Brooks and Lowndes County, especially southern parts of Brooks and Lowndes. Hopefully the storm itself will continue weakening while most of the area, it's in that 15 to 25 mile per hour range. We've had some days behind a cold front where we have breezes this strong. But when you are in those areas nearest to that core, it is much more significant and much more dangerous. And take a look at this. Some of the gusts over the past few hours, if we get into Perry here, we see those gusts that got up over 60, up over 70 to 85 miles per hour. At Lafayette High School, a gust that got to 67 miles per hour. Now, those are those 2 or 3 second bursts. So, yeah, some really significant things there. That is the one that's going to cause danger. That is the one that's going to cause power outages. Those are the kind of gusts that are going to knock tree limbs down. Even in Tallahassee, a 44 mile per hour wind gust. So that's going to cause some problems in many spots. In Thomasville, a 32 mile per hour gust. Already a 40 mile per hour gust in Valdosta. So there's certainly been some strong gusts. And the most recent ones in Valdosta are up to 45 miles per hour. So windy for sure, gusting winds absolutely, and that is what's going to cause more issues in addition to the rain that we're going to continue to see. Here's the radar picture one more time. This significant stripe from Moultrie through Thomasville to Tallahassee to Crawfordville, the whole Highway 319 corridor with moderate to heavy rains. get into Madison County, northern Taylor County, between Perry and the city of Madison up to I-10. That's where the extreme rain is now. And as this continues to lift to the north and to the northeast, it's going to bring those batches of heavy rain. It's going to bring those instances of the most dangerous and strongest winds with it. And I think those areas next are going to be up to Highway 84 near the I-75 corridor into parts of Brooks and Lowndes counties. So that's what we'll be watching for that. We'll see if those extreme wind warnings continue to get extended. They're now into parts of Madison. They're now into parts of Lafayette and Suwannee. That's set to go till 11:15 this morning. And then, of course, one of the first areas that I've seen some flood warnings, and that's going to be right through parts of Wakulla into Leon County, and that's going to go till the afternoon. So some flooding already beginning, and that does line up with where we've got that stripe of the heaviest rains in southern Leon County, northern Wakulla County, down towards St. Marks, so near the St. Marks River. So that's where we have some of those flooding concerns. And we certainly do see those batches of rain north of Perry. That's going to continue moving to the north as the core of the storm itself continues to move more to the north. And that's where we're going to find those heaviest rains. So, yeah, it's going to be areas in Madison County, and it's going to get across the state line into spots of Brooks and Lowndes counties. Now, here's what it looks like kind of on a bigger perspective. And the expanse of the entire system, it does go from Liberty County all the way over towards I-75. So covering a large area. But, man, that core stayed really, really small, and it kept those strongest winds in just that smallest area. So that was one of the better things that could have happened with this system. Instead of seeing that core really expand and get deeper and stronger, to really spread out those most dangerous winds and the most of the serious rain. But you can also see so much rain spiraling through many areas. And I do think as we get through the next couple of hours, those rains will start to taper off to showers, and then taper off from the showers to next to nothing. And then we'll have some wraparound moisture lingering, I think, later on. Well, back to the west, the air is much drier, and we'd like to see some of that take over the next couple of days. And I think it's a real possibility. So there's some better and brighter news coming. We just got to make it through these next couple of hours first for many of our Florida areas, and maybe got to get just past lunchtime in some of our South Georgia areas before we can start to wave goodbye to the bulk of all this. And then it's going to be about the aftermath. All right, we're coming up on 9 o'clock. I don't think I have 9 o'clock information just yet, so we're still going with the 8 o'clock stuff. The air pressure at 950 millibars, up from a low back in the 940s, and then we can see the winds still around that core. Still coming in as of 8 o'clock at Category 3 at 120 miles per hour. I suspect that's going to come down a little bit more when we get the 9 o'clock info. And then as we go to 9 to 10 to 11, and we get that next full advisory, hopefully we'll see a real big drop in all of that, as the storm itself should really kind of continue racing off to the north and east and getting out of our area. But it's going to be a couple of more hours still. You can see the size of it, and there's plenty of wind and rain that still has to make its way through our area, lifting from south and west to north and east. And of course, that surge is still going to be a real thing now as the backside of those winds wraps around and helps to push that wind up against the Taylor and Dixie County coast, while maybe the winds and take the water down from Franklin and Wakulla counties coast, but it's really going to start piling it up on the Taylor and the Dixie County coast. So that's where those storm surges up over 10 feet are going to be. We've had some of those cameras where we saw some of the water in some of those marina areas that are way up the sides of those buildings and up over the sides of those vehicles that were out there. That's a lot of water, and that's what's going to continue to be one of the major storylines in those areas, in addition to the wind and the rain. And even when the wind and the rain start to calm down, it takes a while for those waters to recede again, especially considering that the high tides are the next round of tides later on this afternoon, this evening. So we'll be watching for all of that as we go through the day today. But the next story right now is a couple more hours of this wind and this rain, guys.
Thank you so much, Rob, for that latest information. And yeah, every minute, every hour is so important now, as one community after the next is in the line of fire. Some of the strongest winds with Idalia, so very important. We wanted to show you several different views here. This is a live, or not a live look, of course, but this is a video recording from outside our studio back before sunrise. You can see in Tallahassee bands of rain and wind, kind of what you would expect to see with a tropical storm.
And that must have been taken during one of the downsides, because, man, I tell you, there were moments where it sounded much louder than that just sitting inside here in the studio. But right now, this is a video from Perry, the traffic camera there. Yeah. Ooh, and you can see those strong winds. Well, speaking of, our lights
are flashing here in the studio.
So yeah, that video we just saw was nothing compared to what's been happening. But yeah, again, Perry right there. And yeah,
that was
Taylor County. They already knew that it was going to be a lot of action in that area.
Yeah.
Ooh, the lightning. Oh man.
Yeah, and that was about 30 minutes ago on US 19 and 98 in Perry. And then, of course, along the coast, Lenitra.
Oh, yeah. We've been talking about that coast most definitely. This is towards Taylor County's coast. The streets in Steinhatchee submerged in water. That's a look there, the conditions. And, of course, we'll continue to monitor that area, but we've been looking out there over the several hours. And it's just amazing to see how the water, it seems to have been getting higher and higher and higher. That particular house right there, boy, when we first saw it a few hours ago, the water wasn't that high.
Water wasn't that high, and there was still a truck, I believe, that was just parked on the road there. And so who knows if that truck that's underwater has been swept away. It's so hard to tell. And as I had mentioned earlier, that's a river. That's not an oceanside town. Steinhatchee is a river town, but that just puts it in the context.
Yeah, taking a look now, this is Crawford.